Warning, warning, warning. This show may contain graphic violence, strong language, and partial nudity. We tried to warn you, but you wouldn't listen. The views and opinions are those of the ones making them and not that of anyone else. But it should be. Monday nights in sports have been together for a long time. But now comes sports in a different way.
Something is different. Anything different is good.
This is a sports talk show about anything sports, locally, regionally, nationally, and beyond. What once was good for radio is now better.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
Go! The 2015 Monday Night's Sports Talk Mock NFL Draft is now open.
Welcome into Monday Night Sports Talk on a special Wednesday evening as we get ready for the NFL mock draft. Adam Haley, Scott Erland, Sean, I'll have to apologize, don't remember your last name.
Bradke.
He is in the house as well as Clay Stanifer. 32 teams within 1 hour.
Going to be a whole lot of fun.
It is. We are the general managers over 8 different picks. We have a Jaguars fan, a Titans fan, a Jets fan, and a Packers fan.
And only one of us with a little bit of hope going into next year. Maybe Sean might have a little bit more than me and you, I think.
I was going to say, you're talking about my Jets right there? Because
Yeah,
I know
I mean,
we made some moves.
That's true.
Give Jacksonville a few years and we'll be fine.
We will always be relevant. I have nothing to worry
The
about.
Packers are one of those teams that just always has to feel like one little stopgap, you know?
Mm-hmm.
While the Titans and the Jaguars are always like, whoa, a little overwhelmed by the number of holes we have to fill.
Always. So let's see how we're going to work. Again, we are the general managers over 8 picks. 32 picks. We're going to be here until 7 o'clock. Again, the draft is tomorrow night. We will compare how we turn out with all of that. With that being said, Clay,
Tampa Bay is on the clock.
you're up.
With the number 1 pick in this year's draft.
Wait, would you like me to give you the...
Yeah, I would like the official. Yeah,
okay,
thank
there you go.
That was good. I like that.
With the number 1 pick in the 2015 Monday Night Sports Talk mock draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Jameis Winston, Florida State.
I don't think there was any surprise.
Not much drama there.
Not with that one. That's pretty well going to be the consensus. Tampa Bay's been on the clock for a while. Now comes the domino.
Tennessee is on the clock.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a team in the NFL that has more holes to fill than the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
Finished 27th in total defense and 31st in run defense last year. 29th in total offense, so they were horrible all the way around, really. You can make an argument for just about any position on the field. So with that...
We should point out there are no trades in our mock draft.
No trades.
Because more than likely Tennessee may trade that pick.
It seems like a long time. It seems like they're really kind of shopping that draft pick, and they've been doing it for a long time.
But we can't predict all that, so there's no trades tonight in our mock draft.
You can make the argument to take any number of positions. I know they're in the market for a franchise QB. Obviously, they don't know about Zach Mettenberger. But in that situation, a team like the Titans, 2-14 last year, you just need talent. You just need talent. Take the best player in the draft. That's Leonard Williams. They say he's the safest pick in the draft. Overwhelming strength. Can be with Dick LeBeau's, tutelage. He could become a dominant pass rusher, a dominant defensive tackle. And I like Leonard Williams. I'd like to watch him paired up next to Jarrell Casey.
So the Titans are taking Leonard Williams at number 2, which makes for an interesting pick when it comes to...
Jacksonville is on the clock.
Puts the pressure on the Jaguars a little bit because if Tennessee doesn't trade out of that 2 spot, Jacksonville's going to be an attractive spot for a trade. Again, there are no trades. Leonard Williams was the best defensive player on the board, and if he'd have been there for Jacksonville, it would have been a harder pick. But he's not there for Jacksonville. One of the big things they need is an outside linebacker. There are 2 good ones on the board, but I believe we've got to stay in-state. Jacksonville will select Dante Fowler Jr. with a number 3 pick.
He was actually 3rd on my big board for the Titans. I really like that pick.
So now Jacksonville's made theirs.
Oakland is on the clock.
And that's me.
Back to Scott.
I'm picking for Oakland. We drew this at random, obviously.
Actually, twice.
Yeah, so we drew twice. But Oakland, another team that has a ton of holes to fill. I think they got a nice prize in Derek Carr, a guy who proved he can be a decent, a legitimate starting quarterback in this league. But what they need around him, I think, first and foremost, is a receiver, a top receiver threat. Their top two guys are Michael Crabtree and James Jones, and Michael Crabtree's in the last year of his contract. They need a receiver, and there's no better receiver in my mind in the draft than Amari Cooper. If I'm Oakland, I'm jumping all over Amari Cooper, and I feel good with that pick.
So the first wide receiver goes off the board at 4 to Oakland, and now we are watching the fall of Marcus Mariota. Now that Oakland's made their pick, we're at number 5.
Washington is on the clock.
And Sean, this is your first pick for the Redskins.
And I think this actually sets up well for Washington. They certainly get a lot of opportunity here to trade out of the pick if they'd like to, with Marcus Mariota being on the board. I think they have a lot of needs. Certainly in their secondary, having one of the worst secondaries in the league, you can make a case for Trey Waynes right here, cornerback out of Michigan State. He's got electric speed. I believe he's at a 4.3 speed. Ball hawk, great hands, makes great plays on the ball. But I think at this position in the draft, you have to take the best player available and accumulate talent. And that's why I think the Washington Redskins need to go with Vic Beasley, defensive end, outside linebacker out of Clemson. He's got freakish speed, 4.5, 340 in the combine. Jadeveon Clowney was at the same speed when he ran it, 41-inch vertical, so he can get up there and block down that ball at the line of scrimmage. 35 bench reps, one of the tops at the combine. The guy is just freakishly fast, strong, athletic. He can drop back and cover. I think this is a no-brainer for Washington. They take Vic Beasley here and really shore up that pass rush defense that they need to help that secondary.
That's a good pick. That's an absolute. I don't know if any of you all saw the Todd McShay, Mel Kiper mock draft went back and forth, and Beasley falls out of the first round. There's no way. No way that happens.
Polian and the other guy definitely pointed that out, that there's absolutely no way he makes it.
I'll go ahead and say it as a Jacksonville fan, if he falls out to Jacksonville's second-round pick, they need to take him immediately. Don't even think about it. Have that card ready.
Well, it won't happen because the Titans will take him. They need an outside linebacker, too. That's another one of their major needs. So if Vic Beasley happens to fall in at 33, I'll be ecstatic. There's no chance of it happening, though.
We are 5 picks down in our mock draft. If you're just joining us, the Buccaneers took Jameis Winston first overall. The Titans went defense with Leonard Williams out of USC. The Jacksonville Jaguars took Dante Fowler Jr. from the University of Florida. The Oakland Raiders with the 4th pick took Amari Cooper out of Alabama. And just recently, the Washington Redskins took Vic Beasley out of Clemson. And with that being said, it's kind of odd that we're now at the 6th pick, and 2 of our favorite teams have already went. The third one's getting ready to go down on the board because
the New York Jets are on the clock.
Sean, it's up to you.
That's probably my favorite thing to hear is the New York Jets, Jets are on the clock.
Now,
it's out of New York now.
Out of New York, absolutely.
Now, when he makes his pick, we need to make him feel welcome. We're going to boo the pick no matter what it is.
Thank you. I know we're in Chicago this year, but I still want to have that Radio City Music Hall feel. Okay. So please feel free to boo the pick. I think this is probably every Jets fan worst nightmare. Marcus Mariota staring you in the eyes on the board at number 6 right now. I think he's a great quarterback, but I'm not a big fan of him for our system. So I'm going to pass on Marcus Mariota here and let that domino continue to fall. However, I am going to look at Kevin White, West Virginia, wide receiver. I think at this point, with the moves that we've made in our offseason, we can have the luxury of taking the best talent available. And Kevin White is a beast. 4.3, 540. He's got speed. All his measurables were the same as Alshon Jeffrey coming out, but he's faster. Alshon Jeffrey was in the upper 4.4s. We have Kevin White here in the mid 4.3s. So he's that vertical threat they need. He's explosive, physical. When you watch the tape, and I watched a lot of tape today, he's able to come back to the football really well, and he high points it well. He goes up and gets that ball over anybody, and against great competition this year too. He's not just beating up, Missouri Valley State. Okay, he's going against Oklahoma. He's going against Alabama. They're going against big time competition, and he's coming up big for them. And I think the way that he plays the wide receiver position is perfect for Geno Smith, who likes to throw the ball high and a little inaccurate. And I really, really love Kevin White. I think he's going to be good here.
So the Jets pass on Mariota.
Well, me and Sean actually he called me today, and we had a conversation about that. I think there's almost zero separation between him and Amari.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Amari is the probably more polished guy now, but Kevin White has a higher upside. He's the freak, the athletic freak, and he's incredibly gifted. So can't go wrong with either pick, I don't think. Of course, I started my Sorry for Amari campaign a long time ago.
You did.
I was telling him that. So Yeah.
So the Jets have taken a wide receiver, and with that,
Chicago is on the clock.
the home. Oh wait, we're supposed to have booed his pick.
Oh.
Boo! Now Chicago's on the clock. They're the hometown team this season, and with that, we are back to Scott.
And this pick very well could get booed too. Now that it's in Chicago, they have surprisingly a lot of holes to fill too in Chicago. They were just kind of a mess defensively. Offensively, they're going in obviously a backwards direction. Brandon Marshall left. Matt Forte's entering. He'll be 30 in December. So they have a lot of holes to fill too. But ultimately, I tried to juggle between a receiver. They need a receiver. Well, both the top two receiving threats are gone, Cooper and White. So for them, I'm getting a cornerback. I'm trying to shore up that pass defense, which was one of the worst in the NFL last year. And to me, Trey Waynes from Michigan State is the most polished cornerback in this in the draft. He's a big guy. He could be an immediate impact on their team. So I like Trey Waynes from Michigan State, cornerback.
That's a good pick at 7. That brings us to the 8th pick.
Atlanta is on the clock.
And Clay, you are back up.
All right, as Scott was pointing out earlier, there's quite a few teams in this first half of the draft that have a lot of holes. You can make an argument the Falcons have probably up there in the top 3 area with most holes. They were pathetic last year on the offense and defensive side of the ball. Matt Ryan was terrible in the second half of the year. Julio Jones is going up on a contract year, so I'm going to have to go defense this year. I'm not a fan of Bud Dupree, as much people say they are of him. He's a fast guy. He's a great athlete, but I think he's too much of a tweener to make a fit in that 4-3 defense they have. So with this pick, I'm going to go with Danny Shelton out of Washington.
That's a great pick.
I'm with you on that Dupree. I think he's too much of a project long term that if you're going to draft this high, you need to get somebody that can come up and make an immediate impact. And I just don't think he's that guy.
Yeah, and Danny Shelton's special. I mean, he's a big guy that can rush the passer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Falcons the past 3 years, I think, have been the worst at rushing the passer out of any NFL team.
Well, and you can make an argument that having a good pass rush is the most important thing in the NFL. Outside of a quarterback, it's one of the most important things.
So Atlanta they go defense.
The New York Giants are on the clock.
And we're back to Clay.
Okay, with the Giants, I was thinking about this today, and I know they've made a lot of good signings here in the offseason on their defensive side of the ball. So I'm going to go with the first pick on the offensive line taking this draft. I'm not going to take Brandon Sharif because I think he transitions better to a guard in the NFL, and the Giants have their guards. They need tackles. So I'm going to go with Andreas Pete.
I was really kind of thinking he might have fallen down the board a little bit to some of the teams I've got in the middle part of the round, but that's a real good pick there. So we're now at number 10. Quickly going through this draft. If you're just joining us, Marcus Mariota still in the war room, wherever he be. I guess he's actually in Hawaii when he's in for this draft.
Yeah, I don't think he's actually attending the draft.
No, he's not going
I think
to
we're
Chicago.
all in agreement by this point in the draft. There's going to be some sort of trade movement to get him.
I think so.
Yeah, he's not going to last this long.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're at number 10.
St. Louis is on the clock.
And that takes us back to Sean.
A lot of people think that Marcus Mariota, if he were to fall here, this is a good opportunity for the Rams to get a quarterback. I don't happen to believe in that. I think that they have some other needs going on. They established themselves as a good running football team with Trey Mason last year coming out. He had a great college career himself and really started making a name for himself late with that team. I think what they need to be able to help that and give their quarterbacks more time. I know they just traded for, help me out here, Scott, the kid in Philadelphia. Nick Foles. Give him a little extra time. I want to go back to the offensive line. I think we get another one coming off the board here, and they would be happy to have Brandon Scherf from Iowa, offensive lineman. And when you watch his tape and you watch him block, he is mean, he is nasty. And it actually kind of made me laugh today. There was one part of his tape I was watching, I felt like I was looking at The Blind Side, when he's blocking and he pushes him over the fence and just keeps going through the whistle. Brandon Scherf had a couple of moments like that where he just completely takes people out of the play and he just doesn't quit. Drives people to the ground, puts them all over the place, and I think you want that kind of nasty in your offensive line. And for a team that likes to run the football and has a running back to do so, I think this makes a lot of sense for them.
He's freakishly strong too.
He is.
Have you heard this? Have you heard the stories about him, Scherf, and how he
That's why I think he'll be better to guard because he's stronger than he is fast.
I think he can play pretty much anywhere though, and he's a great pick. I wouldn't mind him for the Titans if we were picking back in that 10 to 12 range.
Absolutely. His versatility to play tackle and guard, I think, will give him a lot of opportunity. I know on our team we always say when we're recruiting, versatility creates opportunity, and certainly he'll have his opportunities ahead of him with that kind of versatility.
Yeah, and they need somebody that can protect the quarterback, keep him upright. So that's what happened with Bradford there. So
that brings us to the 11th pick.
Minnesota is on the clock.
And finally, I'm back up here. Minnesota, you take a look at them. They need offensive line. They're not going to take Mariota here. They just got a quarterback last year. They need to go defensive secondary. But I'm going to go back on the offensive side. You've got to give Bridgewater a weapon. And with that, I'm taking Devontae Parker out of Louisville at wide receiver. I feel like
he is, besides Amari Cooper, he is the best route runner in this draft. He's very, very crisp.
I think he would be good for them to go up against, to be on the opposite side of possibly like a Cordell Patterson.
Well, Cordell Patterson obviously pairs up well with him, and I think they lost Greg Jennings this offseason, correct?
To the Dolphins.
Yeah. He went to the Dolphins.
2-year deal.
They kind of they need that's a good position need for them.
And this brings us to an interesting point of our mock draft.
Cleveland is on the clock.
Their first of 2 picks, and this one is in the favor of Scott.
And we've heard rumblings. Obviously, today there was one report that the Titans had shopped both of their trades for their first round picks for the Titans number 2.
Yep.
Which it seems like Cleveland, their biggest need, and it seems like it is every single year, is a quarterback. It seems like it is. But at this point in the draft, I mean, if somehow Mariota falls to him, I'm going to take Mariota here. I wasn't expecting to have Mariota slip this far. I think we're all kind of in agreement that Cleveland's going to be a team that's going to try to make a move up the ladder and maybe grab him earlier. But hypothetically, in our draft here, Mariota's fallen to him. Marcus Mariota goes off the board here to Cleveland, and they already move on from Johnny Manziel.
And I imagine the city of Cleveland, if there's not a Cavaliers game that night, is ecstatic.
Yeah, I was going to take him next.
Yeah, they are in the streets singing right now. So that was the first of Cleveland's 2 picks. We're at 13.
New Orleans is on the clock.
And with that, we're back to Sean.
Well, it gets a little interesting here at New Orleans. They seem to be in a little bit of a rebuilding phase, even though they have all-pro quarterback in Drew Brees. There's a couple different ways we could go here. Certainly, I know the off-the-field issues with Randy Gregory scared some people away. I heard Colin Cowherd the other day on the radio talk about, I don't want my defensive ends wired the same as my quarterbacks. I want them to be ready to run through a wall and kill people pretty much on the football field. He said, my quarterbacks, I want to make all the best decisions on and off the field, and I kind of agree with that. While I'm tempted to take Randy Gregory, I think you got to keep Drew Brees happy here, and you got to get him another big body target. And one guy that I absolutely love, who another off-the-field guy has some off-the-field issues, Dorial Green-Beckham. Big body target. If he didn't have all the off-field issues, a lot of people think he'd be a lock for a top 10 pick. He's 6'5", 237 pounds, runs 4.4 speed. He's quick in and out of his breaks. He's just that big body red zone target that they need, that they lost with Jimmy Graham now with Seattle. And I think that makes a lot of sense for them here. Keeps Drew Brees happy. Another wide receiver to complement Brandon Cooks, who they took, who had a really good rookie season himself. And I think that everybody's happy here when they bring Dorial Green-Beckham into their camp.
Very interesting that he goes that high to the Saints.
Well, there's a lot of people thinking that he could jump or he could fall.
Yeah, I kind of, from what I've seen, a lot of people think he's going to fall.
He's been graded as a top 15 talent, just not the top 15 character.
Yeah,
which is.
But in this draft, Winston went number 1.
There's a lot of bad character guys. There's a lot of bad character guys in this draft, so I don't think that matters.
And now we get to the Adam-heavy portion of it here.
Miami is on the clock.
I've got the Dolphins pick at number 14. The Dolphins, you take a look at the 3 big needs: linebacker, guard, and secondary. I'm going secondary here. I'm going with the cornerback out of Wake Forest. I'm going Kelvin Johnson. I think he would be a good fit down in Miami for them. He's big. Let's see where he's got him listed at 6 foot 188. He's not necessarily what you want, but he's got enough heart to keep the size difference that he's got to be very low difference. We're almost halfway through it. We're at number 15.
San Francisco is on the clock.
And boy, oh boy, do they have a lot of holes. You got your receiving core. both lines, your linebackers, your secondary. There's a lot of places San Francisco could go. I'm sure they wish they had a couple different picks. This is where I'm going to take Alvin Dupree from Kentucky. He'll get it.
See, he'll fit that Tom Sula offense.
Yes.
He's got that Alden Smith type athleticism. He can come off the edge. He's athletic enough to go out if you want his zone blitz, to drop him in the flat. That's a great pick. I love that pick.
I think the Niners would be happy to have Dupree at that point. This brings us to the halfway point, and this is the 16th pick.
Houston is on the clock.
And Clay, that is you.
Houston, here they just got, they got the kid from Pitt last year, the Savage kid. Is it Savage?
Tom Savage.
Yeah.
Tom Savage. They got him last year, and they're going to reach for a quarterback, and that's obviously their biggest hole that they've shown this offseason. So right here, even though he's got some off the field issues, reports have said, I'm going to go defense here and help out their secondary, and I'm going to go Marcus Peters from Washington.
Well, he actually got kicked off the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's had a lot of off the field stuff, but he's I think aside from Trey Waynes, he's actually those two are like the most polished, the most talented cornerbacks.
Yeah, when he had his pre-draft workouts, they said he wowed the scouts. They said if he didn't have the Washington problems, he would be top 10.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to the 17th pick.
San Diego is on the clock.
And I really don't know if San Diego is going to be at this point. I've said it for a few weeks. I think they are the best trade partner for Tennessee.
Probably, yes.
But with that being said, San Diego's on the clock. We could go a lot of different places here. This is where I think I'm going to maybe stretch a little bit. San Diego's going to take a running back. And they're going to take Todd Gurley from Georgia. I know he's got the ACL problem, but I've never seen this kid before he got injured. Gurley will be, if he's at full strength, he'll be a good pick for San Diego.
Well, and at this era of medicine, and they'll have him back to full strength. He'll be better than ever, like Adrian Peterson came back after he fully blew out his leg. I mean, it's just not the same as it used to be,
Yeah, I do. That brings us to
Kansas City is on the clock.
And once again, I've got this pick because I have the majority of the middle part of the draft here. Kansas City, they're going to be looking for, I guess, what I would classify as maybe some of the not pretty players. They're going to be looking at offensive line. If there was a receiver like a Parker or a Beckham that was on the board, I think they may go for him here. But I think they're going to go to the defensive side. Kelvin Johnson already went off the board. They're going to take the next best corner. That's Byron Jones from UConn. I'm writing that down, and unfortunately it's still next to me. We're at number 19.
Cleveland is on the clock.
They've already taken Mariota. Cleveland also needed a tight end, but more importantly, they're going to need an offensive line to protect everybody. So here we're going to take the next best offensive tackle on the board. We're going to take Collins out of LSU.
It's a good pick.
I'm always one of those, if you take a quarterback, you need to go ahead and get the wall to protect the quarterback.
And those LSU guys regularly, consistently.
And Joe Thomas can play right or left tackle, so that should be easy transition.
And LSU's been known to have mobile quarterbacks, so he probably should fit that mold. Now, Mariota's not what LSU's had in the past, but he'll kind of understand a little bit of where, when the quarterback scrambles, how that works.
He's an SEC guy. He's proven. I think that's a great pick. I like him at that pick.
Certainly. Les Miles puts out a lot of great next-level talent, and he's got all the physical tools. The one concern I have on him is sometimes he stands up too high as a lineman and can get beat and blown off, but when he gets low, he's hard to stop. I mean, he's just so big and so strong. It's hard to take him down.
Yeah, he's a mauler is the way they describe him, I think, right? He just is a physical brute.
And for once, I'm not on the clock.
Philadelphia is on the clock.
That takes us back to Sean.
Well, I still think Philadelphia is going to be one of the teams in the mix for Marcus Mariota in trading up. I've been calling it before all the reports came out. I'm still sticking to my guns on that. Chip Kelly loves him some Marcus Mariota way too much to give up on him. Even if he's got to pull a record-breaking trade out, I think he still tries to go for it. That said, I know they have a lot of other needs. They need some wide receiver help. They also need secondary help. But I think that they're going to be staring Jalen Strong in the face here. And when you put on the tape, I like him a lot. And I think we'll take Jalen Strong, wide receiver at Arizona State. He's a Pac-12 guy. We all know Chip Kelly loves his Pac-12 guys. Can't get enough of them. But, when you put on the tape, he's 6'4", 205 pounds. He's got a 42-inch vertical, runs 4.4 speed. He can stretch the field. He's a great route runner. Not the best route runner in our draft, but he gets in and out of his breaks well. And he'll make some good plays for them down the field, which is what they need to be able to be successful in that offense. And I think with Chip Kelly, he'll have an easy time making plays in that offense. It seems like everybody that they put into that offense does well. So I think Jalen Strong, wide receiver, Arizona State.
Didn't they just lose a receiver too?
Jeremy Maclin.
They did lose.
Jeremy Maclin.
That's right. So yeah, that's obviously a need for them. Their offense. Maybe they're just making all these. They're acquiring all these guys so they can be trade partners. Tim Tebow for the number 2 overall pick. And then I'd officially relinquish my fanhood, too. So
he's not so bad. The Jets had him for a year.
He never saw the field.
He did. He did on special teams. He was the personal protector for the punter.
That's it. So I'll be fine with him in that position at the Titans.
At number 21.
Cincinnati is on the clock.
This is my final pick of the mock draft because apparently when we drew the numbers, I went to the middle part of the draft. So this is it for me. Cincinnati needs offensive line to protect Andy Dalton. They need a tight end for him to throw to as well. That's something that's really becoming key in the National Football League is a tight end that can catch the ball. But I'll take a look at the board that I've got left here. There's a couple of receivers that are left. There's a big defensive end still sitting there that just had an off-the-field problem. But I'm going to go on the defensive line, and I'm going to go to the Longhorn State. Cincinnati is going to take Malcolm Brown, defensive tackle out of Texas. I think he'd be, I kind of look at that division as a very tough, hard-nosed division, and I think that would work out well for them. And with that being said, to stay in division.
Pittsburgh is on the clock.
Sean, we're back to you.
Well, I think if this actually plays out for Pittsburgh, they'd be really excited not having to move up in the draft to get their guy. Troy Polamalu retiring leaves a huge hole in that safety in that secondary, which is already aging when you got Ike Taylor back there getting old too. So they certainly need to address that in the draft. But when you got a guy like Landon Collins, the strong safety out of Alabama, sitting there, I think it's hard for them to pass him up, considering that they have a serious need there now. He's a 4.5 speed guy, but when you watch him, he's a hard hitter. He's always around the ball. He's got good hands to make the interception, forcing fumbles, causing turnovers. He's not going to be Troy Polamalu. I don't want to say that. He's going to sit in and all of a sudden, boom, don't worry, Pittsburgh fans, you got your guy back there. But I think that he's the next closest thing you can in this draft. He certainly hits hard. When you think about Pittsburgh, you think about tough defense, hard hitting. And when you watch his tape, he certainly lets the receivers know that he's there and is not shy about that at all.
He played the SEC championship and the Ohio State game with a broken clavicle.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
he fits
so he's
the Pittsburgh.
tough.
He fits the Pittsburgh mold completely, 100%.
Yeah, and Ike Taylor, he's gone.
Is he gone?
Yeah, he retired.
He retired too?
They need help.
Yeah, they need a lot of help. That position's obviously vacant, which has been held down for the last 8 years at least by those guys.
Yep.
So that's an obvious spot of need.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with that defense because Jarvis Jones hasn't exactly panned out for them either on that outside linebacker pass rush. So
Dick LeBeau's gone.
Dick LeBeau's with the Titans now.
Yep. You're happy.
He's like 80 years old, but still, who cares? Still, Dick LeBeau's brain is still there.
Yeah. Brings us to the 23rd pick, Clay.
Detroit is on the clock.
You're up.
Okay, now a lot of people like to knock on the Lions roster, including myself being a Packers fan, but it's stacked pretty nicely for them, even though they lost Sue, they've lost Fairley. They signed Haloti Ngata, or they traded for him, excuse me, and Anza's shown some flashes. They got DeAndre Levy back there. They got a pretty solid on defense. My question is the offensive line. They drafted Swanson last year. He started toward the end of the year. I'm going to go with another center 2 years in a row, but I think this guy is the most versatile lineman in the draft and has the highest ceiling of any offensive lineman in the draft, and that's Cameron Irving out of Florida State. He would have been a top 20 pick last year had he come out, stayed another year, and they moved him from left tackle all the way over to center, and it completely changed their year.
Brings us to 24. We're going to the NFC West.
Arizona is on the clock.
And Scott is on the clock.
Well, when I started researching the Arizona Cardinals, obviously, the first thing you think about the Cardinals is great team, made the playoffs last year, and it felt like it was kind of derailed because Carson Palmer's injury.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't really ever get it on offense. You think of the Cardinals, you think they have a great defense. And while they did, they were 5th in the league in points allowed per game. They still gave up a lot of yardage. They still gave up their 29th in passing D, and they were also 24th in sacks. Didn't get a lot of sacks. So you know what I'm going with here? They need you would think I want to go offense. I think I'm going to go defense here. Even though Melvin Gordon is still staring me in the face right here, I know they'd love to have maybe a Melvin Gordon type. Shane Ray has slipped all the way to him. I like Shane Ray. Another kind of a trouble guy, but he's a freak top 5 talent in terms of his athleticism. 40-inch vertical, 400-pound bench press, 4.5 speed. Supposedly he's even below that. He led the SEC in sacks, and that was when guys were focusing on him on that Missouri defense. I love Shane Ray at this pick, this value for the Cardinals.
Yeah, they were the equivalent of bend don't break defense last year, and
Yes.
Tyrann Mathieu, speaking off the field stuff, that's worked out for him.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really care. I mean, obviously
and Todd Bowles is gone, so they're gonna the defensive coordinator, so they're gonna need some help on that defensive. The defensive unit. It's going to be.
It's hard for me to imagine that they would actually pass on Melvin Gordon if he does slip this far, but.
You got
Especially,
Andre Ellington.
I mean, they weren't great offensively. They were second to last in rushing offense last year. Andre Ellington was, but a lot of that was because of his injuries. Andre Ellington's injuries. I think they just need to shore up that pass rush. They know that, that just seems like Bruce Arians knows that's kind of where their focus is going to be. And with Shane Ray and Randy Gregory both there for him, but I think they'll take Shane Ray. That's who I take.
That brings us to the 25th pick, going to the NFC South.
Carolina is on the clock.
And we're back to Clay.
Okay. So the Carolina Panthers have some needs. The defense is obviously their strong point, but they started falling off toward the end of the year with some injuries. They need speed on offense. I feel like Cam Newton's kind of taken them to a new level with that relationship with Kelvin Benjamin. I think he helped him out with the deep ball. I'm going to go with another speedster here, the guy that can kind of play all over the place in the slot at the opposite X position. I'm going to go with Philip Dorsett out of Miami. The guy is electric with the ball in his hands.
A lot of wide receivers going in this first round.
Mm-hmm. And the great, I mean, you can look at it all across the league. Rookie wide receivers transition very well. When you look at Odell Green Beckham, Mike Evans, Kelvin Benjamin, Brandon Cooks, you can go down
last year might have been the greatest crop of rookie receivers that the NFL's ever seen. And there were a lot of articles and columns suggesting that kind of stuff. So it was a really good year for it. So I think it would be probably a hot first-round commodity this year, especially with Amari and, Kevin White in there.
Absolutely. I know as a Jets fan, I'm sitting there going, why didn't we get one of those guys last year?
Yeah, me too, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, especially when we passed on Odell Beckham Jr.
Yes.
So.
7 picks left to go. We're at number 26.
Baltimore is on the clock.
And this takes us back to Sean.
Well, I'm pretty torn here. Baltimore certainly has some needs on the offensive side of the football, running back and wide receiver. With Torrey Smith gone, that playmaker's out, and no Ray Rice. I know he was a staple there. You just kind of wonder what they have now. If Melvin Gordon were to fall this far, I think that would be something of interest to them. But I'm going to take a different direction since I'm the GM today, and I'm going to draft Sammy Coates, wide receiver out of Auburn, staying that wide receiver trend. He's been an electric playmaker. He really more stretches the field than anything in between. And I think with Joe Flacco throwing the football, loves that deep ball. I think an electric playmaker, guy that runs in low 4.4s, has a 41-inch vertical. He's 6'1", 212 pounds. I think that makes a lot of sense for Joe Flacco. When you watch a lot of his highlight tape, it does happen downfield, and he'll certainly have to work on more of his route tree and developing that. But I think he's got all the tools to do that. And in the short term, if he can just get downfield, I think Joe Flacco will find him deep, and they'll be very happy together. So Sammy Coates, wide receiver out of Auburn, with the 26th pick.
Brings us to 27. Look out, Dallas.
Dallas is on the clock.
And we're to Scott.
Well, I think this is a pretty obvious pick now, the way the draft is played out. They don't have a whole lot of major holes in that team. They have the best offensive line in the game. They have Des Bryant. Tony Romo had a great season last year. Their defense was improving. They still could do some things probably defensively, but they lost to Marco Murray. Huge gap to hold to fill there, and with Melvin Gordon slipping all the way to him, there's no way. I think they would be okay with getting a guy in the second round, but if Melvin Gordon happens to follow them at 27, then you can't pass that opportunity up. I like Melvin Gordon for the Cowboys there.
I think that was probably one of the easiest picks.
Yeah, it was. As he slipped to me, it was.
Yeah, if he were to fall that far, that would be a blessing for them. That would be fantastic because, I mean, he's kind of got the DeMarco balance running style, but he's got the footwork and speed of Jamal Charles. And he would just him with Des Bryant on the outside, that would be dynamic.
The middle's going to be wide open with that offensive line opening the holes that they do. I mean, look out.
I mean, there was real conversation about Dallas's, because you can name a unit, a position unit as the MVP, and there was real conversation of their offensive line being the MVP last year. That was and then they kind of let up a little bit at the end of the year and lost some of that, I guess, momentum. But I mean, you could put almost anybody behind there, and a guy like Melvin Gordon,
he'd love it.
That'd be unbelievable.
He'd be all right.
We're at pick 28.
Denver is on the clock.
And with that, we're back to Scott.
Right back at me here. Obviously, kind of it feels like they're still a contender, but it also feels like they could maybe not be. You know, it feels like this is kind of a watershed year. Peyton Manning, he says it's not his last year. It's not a farewell tour, but it kind of feels like it might be. You know, they went 12-4 and they lose in the divisional round again. They fire John Fox. They bring in Gary Kubiak, who I think it's kind of a shaky hire at best. But I mean, we're at liberty to discuss that. Probably elaborate further once we get done with our round here. But I think they obviously could pretty much go anywhere on defense, but I think they're probably going to try to protect their Peyton Manning for one more year, and they're going to try to make him happy. And offensive line seems like a pretty important need. So I go here with Eric Flowers, offensive tackle out of Miami. He's also been described as a mauler, 6'6", 329 pounds, and with La'el Collins out, I think that Flowers is probably the pick here.
Actually had him down as a possible for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And then eventually just changed my mind and went defense with that one.
Yeah, I think that with Peyton still back there, offense is probably, even though they have so many holes they could fill defensively, it seems like that's probably what they're going to have to do from a managerial standpoint.
Their first three picks may be offensive line.
I mean, if I'm the GM of the Broncos, I try to keep Peyton happy. And I also know he's 39 years old now, 38. I mean, it's going to be important to keep him upright.
With some neck injury, too. You don't want that coming back. You keep Peyton Manning upright and happy.
And you want that offensive machine moving still. You know, they work so fast. That's part of what they do, you know.
Let's go to the AFC South, even though myself and Scott don't want to.
No.
Indianapolis is on the clock.
This is Sean's final pick in the mock draft.
This was a fun one. I actually liked Eric Flowers for Indianapolis if he were to fall there. I did like his style.
Pretty clear pick for Indianapolis.
Absolutely.
Andrew Luck, I mean, he's got hit so many times last year.
And the same thing. You want to keep Andrew Luck upright. Now, he's shown he can be great with less than 3 seconds to throw the football. He already has. Imagine if he has longer than that. I mean, look out NFL, right?
Yeah, look out AFC South. It's already terrible.
Absolutely. So now that he's got some new weapons out there, Andre Johnson to throw to, he has T.Y. Hilton, and you got Frank Gore that's coming to join them too to run the football. I think we got to go offensive line here. I like Jake Fisher out of Oregon. He's a good run blocker. He can also pass protect. I know the coaching staff at Oregon loves him to death, and they can't talk enough good things about him. But he can play tackle. He can play guard. I think he'll make a good home at right tackle spot. For the Indianapolis Colts, which will fit them well. And he'll really help them move the football with Frank Gore and also give Andrew Luck a little extra time to throw that football downfield to his awesome weapons.
Which is the scariest thing.
I was going to say, because he needs more time, you know.
I watched him live last year, and he's unbelievable. And he really doesn't. I mean, that's a clear pick, too. It was kind of like the Melvin Gordon falling to Cowboys. You have to take an offensive lineman if you're the Colts. That's got to be their number one need going into this draft.
Clay, we thank you for being patient.
Green Bay is on the clock.
You're finally up with your team.
America's team. Here we go. Okay, last year we tackled our biggest weakness, which was the secondary, and Conklin and Dix worked out for us. We got our pass rushers and Matthews and Peppers. We just signed Raji back, so I think we're pretty solid on the defensive end, unless you want to start talking about depth. That's a different story down the future. But on the offensive side of the ball, we're set at quarterback, we're set at running back, we're set at offensive line, we're set at receivers. I'm going to go with Max Williams out of Minnesota, the tight end. Give him a completely new dynamic. Teams won't be able to scheme for Randall Cobb or Eddie Lacy. He'll be able to open up the middle of the field more. And if you guys haven't seen his highlight, please do. He is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't. I mean, it's like you said, you get to this point in the draft, and there's not quite so many holes to fill. It's just
he is hands down the best tight end in this draft by far.
It's kind of a weak tight end draft that he is, without unquestionably the most.
He's had some questionable character concerns in the pre-draft interviews, but his work ethic has not been questioned whatsoever. So
I think that's a theme of this draft, right? This first round is questionable character concerns, right?
They said he seemed kind of cocky, which I mean,
that can't bother you.
You don't want a quarterback being like that, but I can deal with my tight end being cocky.
He's from Minnesota. The cold weather's not going to hurt him either.
Yeah, he'll transition just fine.
Tom Brady's pretty cocky.
Yeah,
I'll throw that out there. I think you get to this level, you got to have a little bit of cockiness.
He has the right. When you get 4 rings, you can be as cocky as you want.
Publicly, yes. Behind the scenes, I'm sure he's a loose cannon.
I'm sure he is too. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
2 picks left to go.
New Orleans is on the clock.
And Clay, we're back to you for your final pick.
Okay, earlier in the draft we got Green Beckham, so now we're going to attack the defense. And I think you're sitting here and you need a leader to take over for that defense. And you have the pass rush and the run defense, and you're kind of sitting out at the back end. But you also have a huge hole right there in the middle with Lofton moving over to outside backer. The middle backer spot is open. So I love Dawson from TCU, and I love the guy from Mississippi State, McKinley, but I'm going to go with Eric Kendricks.
From UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had talked about this before we got on air. New Orleans probably just realized that they needed to rebuild about 2 or 3 years too late, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're kind of stuck, and they still might not realize they need to rebuild, but who knows? Maybe they're going to try to duct tape it together for another couple of years. And
yeah, I know the the analytics and everything say that the running backs and the linebackers don't need to go as high, but the linebackers in this draft I feel like are very underrated.
There's a lot of really good ones. Yeah,
The guy from Miami. I think they're very underrated this year.
And Eric Kendricks, that's Buckus Award winner, top
linebacker.
Linebacker, thank you. I'm fumbling my words here. Top linebacker in the country. He's the UCLA record holder for career tackles. The guy is just tough as nails, and he's going to hit that hole and stop that run. I think that would be a great luxury pick for them to be able to sit back and take if he falls that far to them.
I think that's a good pick. Yeah, he's been racing up the draft boards and for a long time now, and they need to shore up that defense. It was an abysmal pass defense last year.
And that brings us to the final pick of the first round of the 2015 mock draft.
New England is on the clock.
And Scott, you will finish us off.
Well, the Titans have to play the Patriots this year, which that means your team does too. We have to go to Foxborough. I think you get to have them at.
I think we actually got to go to Foxborough.
Okay, so that should be good. So I'm picking for. Anyways, the defending Super Bowl champs, they're kind of like the Spurs at this point. You might want to count them out, but you never really can. They do actually have a few big holes to fill. They lose both Darrelle Revis, and thanks to Darrelle Revis goes back to New York and Brandon Browner goes. I think he went to New Orleans. Does that sound right? I think he did go to New Orleans. Brandon Browner.
Sure of.
So they lose 2 cornerbacks. That's a huge hole, and obviously Vince Wilfork is now going to be alongside J.J. Watt in Houston, which is terrifying. So you could really go either route, cornerback or DT. And I think it's probably more important in a passing league to be able to stop the pass. Byron Jones and Peters are already gone, so I'm going to go with Eric Rowe, the next best option, cornerback out of Utah.
I kind of wondered. I know we were joking off before we went on the air when we were talking about who was going to take with our first pick and everything, and I kind of just threw Rowe out because he was at the bottom of my page. But I was sitting there going, I actually don't think he's going to go first round.
Yeah, no, he barely did. He snuck in first round. I think that they need him. I almost went with Goldman out of FSU, the D tackle. But I think that it's more important in the current setup of the league to be able to stop the pass. Yeah. I think that you value cornerbacks more, even though I know that I took for the Titans. I know I took Leonard Williams.
Yeah.
But
you had to.
Yeah.
We had to.
And the Patriots run that 3-4 scheme, and Goldman's more of a 3 technique guy when he plays in a 4-3.
Right.
So I completely agree. That was a great pick.
Well, I mean, and losing Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner, I don't think Brandon Browner's a great corner guy. But obviously, Darrelle Revis is a great corner guy, and in the hole, you lose two pretty awesome guys. That's a big hole.
Yeah,
it really changed their whole team around. I mean, everybody knows that they can score and put points up, but nobody wants to face the fact that when you get to the playoffs, you got to be able to keep the other team off the board. And having Darrelle Revis was a nice luxury, and as well. Browner, and something that I know as a Jets fan I missed firsthand. The second Revis was gone, it was open season on that half of the field. There's nothing he could do. I mean, Antonio Cromartie for the one season tried to do the best he could, but I mean, he's still no Darrelle Revis. So,
well, I don't know what's worse, honestly. And I don't mean to interrupt you, Clay. I don't know what's worse, watching a team just get run all over, or a team get passed all over. Fortunately, I got to see it happen both ways for the Titans, but I think it's almost worse watching a team get run straight up the gut. That's why I went with Leonard Williams ultimately to stop the run. But it's brutal watching you just get, they're going to get 3rd and 8. You feel confident that you're not going to be able to stop it, line up and stop it. It's just a huge part of this league nowadays.
Yeah, you better hope that Gurley or Gordon don't fall that far, because the Patriots just got rid of Ridley and Vereen.
Yeah.
And Blunt, you don't even know if he's going to be on the roster that week. So, I mean, if one of those guys fall that far, everyone better look out in 2015, because Belichick will take them.
See, I don't think either one of them will actually get down to pick 32. I'm just looking down through here. The next running back I have listed is Coleman out of Indiana.
Yeah. There's a big gap between those top two.
Right.
The Colemans, the Abdullahs, and the Ajis.
And Duke Johnson.
Duke Johnson's a good
guy.
Yeah,
I mean, we left a lot of great players on this board that I've been looking at.
One that caught my eye was Randy Gregory, defensive end out of Nebraska. I was surprised he did not go in our mock first round here.
Well, there's been a lot of things I've been reading about him. Apparently, the guy's got. I read something on Deadspin today about him where it's the weirdest thing. He's clearly a top 10 talent. He's clearly an elite pass rusher. And I'm finding that combination of words is very difficult to say for me. Pass rusher. Yeah, okay. But there's obviously something going on. I think they're saying that he has some kind of mental issue, like an anxiety thing, because I know he got caught smoking marijuana. He failed a drug test, and that was one of his big things. But he had said that he smoked marijuana for anxiety issues. So now there's all these kind of things. They're suggesting that Randy that he could fall a long ways in this draft, out of the first round, which he did in our draft. I mean, they're saying that there's something there that's beyond his control, like some kind of mental issue.
And I mean, off the field stuff will kill you. I mean, Mario Edwards at the beginning of this year was a top 10 projected pick, and now he's not even in the first round.
Well, they always say that your number one ability in the NFL is availability. So, I mean, if you have a guy that I know, like we said earlier, you want your defensive ends wired a little differently than everybody else, but if that's going to cause him to miss games because he can't get his marijuana usage under control and he keeps failing tests, or maybe he's making other wrong decisions that leads him into other trouble, and you don't have him on Sunday, then why invest a top pick on a guy like that when he's not going to be around? I think that would really set your franchise back a little bit to waste a pick on a guy that's not even going to be there.
Well, absolutely. You look at Deion Jordan, first-round pick from out of Oregon for the Dolphins in 2013.
Yeah.
And he's out for all of this season. He'll miss the entire season because of his, third or fourth failed drug test, however that works, the drug protocol is. So, absolutely, a guy these problems, obviously it's a big issue. If they got these red flags, you take them and they end up coming back to bite you, then it could ruin. It could end your job. You could lose your job because of those decisions.
Take a look. Obviously, we're only going to do the first round here in our mock draft because we only got about 10 minutes left to go. First pick of the second round goes to the Titans. Looking at what we've had on our board here, you took Williams with the second pick overall. Are you going to go quarterback and possibly Bryce Petty at pick 33?
I don't think so, because at that point, I think if the Titans don't take QB, they're basically saying, and that's why I ultimately don't know if this is how it's going to play out. That's Rustin Webster basically saying that we're looking forward to 2016. We're just collecting assets, guys that we can build teams around. But if you don't have a QB, Zach Mettenberger is a guy. They're just basically saying we're going to run it back one more year with Zach Mettenberger unless we make a deal. So I don't think so. I think that they're going to maybe continue to try to. I think maybe they go for a cornerback. Maybe they go for one of those. We had a lot of receivers taken in our mock draft.
There's still a ton of good receivers. There's a ton of good offensive linemen. You got people were talking about Clemmings jumping into the top 20. You got the guy from A&M. I can't pronounce his name, but he's a monster.
Well, yeah. So you got a lot of guys. I think that obviously some of these receivers we picked might end up falling. You need guys to give Mettenberger a chance. They could also take an offensive lineman. Like I said, you can make the argument the Titans have more holes to fill than anybody in the NFL. Obviously, they tied for the worst record. The only reason they don't have the number one pick is because Tampa Bay had an easier schedule. That's it.
Jacksonville's got the 4th pick in the 2nd round. I think as a Jaguars fan, I'm looking at a running back like a Duke Johnson.
And if he's there, that's great. We
saw flashes out of one of our late picks last year from Central Florida. He was the running back with Bortles, and his name is
Storm.
Yes,
Storm Johnson.
Yeah, Storm Johnson showed flashes, but at the same time, if we can get Duke to go back there with Storm, first off, there's advertising.
Yes,
but I think that would be a good 1-2 punch.
Both from South Beach too.
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Who are you looking for the Jets in the next round?
They got the 5th pick in the 2nd round. That's where I was getting ready to go.
Well, interesting. Kind of looking at the way things shifted out here, and I was thinking this could be a possibility. The Jets really did a great job of addressing a lot of needs through free agency and trades, upgrading their offensive line spot. Obviously, we know they got Antonio Cromartie and Darrelle Revis back, and they got the safety from San Diego. I can't think of his name.
His name's eluding me too.
And Buster Skrine to play our slot, our nickel cornerback right there. So we really do have a lot of luxury with these picks up here, where we can kind of take things of value. I know we're still looking, obviously, quarterback. You could think there. Brett Hundley, I know, has been a name on the Jets website that they've talked about. I don't know how serious they are, but they've talked about. But I think at this point, with the 5th pick in the 2nd round, Randy Gregory, if he's still there, we need an outside linebacker, and I think that would be the right time to take him if he's there.
Yeah, Copels is in a contract year.
He is.
So I would love if he fell away the Jets. That would be awesome.
And with a 2nd round pick, there's not the pressure that goes along with being a 1st round guy.
It's not going to put you back.
Yeah, it's not setting you back as a franchise at all. And they're already good defensively.
We are.
They're great defensively. They picked Pryor last year, and he had kind of slow year, but he was hurt all year.
He was.
You can't judge a draft pick off 1 year.
No, it's tough. But there's some other things coming out, I guess. But it kind of went with the whole Rex Ryan regime. He was a little more laid back, and lack of accountability, which you can see without having to hear the reports coming out. When you're constantly leading the league in penalties and turnovers, that comes down to a lack of accountability from the top down. And who knows, maybe it even goes to Woody Johnson above that, because the Jets have been pretty bad for a while now, minus a couple AFC championship runs, which were great. But, our front 7 is great, and you have an aging Calvin Pace out there, too, who I believe he was double-digit sacks last year, but he's still getting old, so we need some young blood in there that can really rush the passer. And I know he's got some off-field issues. You're talking about what's going on up in his head. But Randy Gregory, put the tape on. The guy's electric. He's got a great first step off the ball. He's explosive. He's strong. He can beat you on the edge rush. He can come across you and beat you inside. He could be that pass rusher that could give us an extra little lift and be part of that rotation they like to use.
Well, and it's such a crapshoot in the NFL draft. You can do all the research. But all you can do is you can do your due diligence, your research. Discuss as a franchise what you need to do, what direction you need to go, and you make the pick and you live with it, And a lot of times it's so much about the scheme, it's so much about the environment, the coaching fit, the city. It can be any number of things. The guy's mental makeup, the things you can't see under the surface. There's so much that goes into a guy becoming what he's supposed to be. it's the same thing with basketball. You see it every year. It happens in every sport.
Absolutely. And you got a guy like David Harris, middle linebacker, inside linebacker for the Jets, who they just re-signed. He's a leader and a captain on that team and on that defense. And a guy like Darrelle Revis coming back, who's also a leader. They know who he is. He's been with a lot of those guys too. Muhammad Wilkerson coming into his own. So I think you get guys like that are good character guys already there to kind of take a Randy Gregory under your wing and take him along and kind of show him the right way to do things. And I think that could work out because you're not going to need a whole lot from him already having a great front seven. So, I mean, if he busts, I think that's one of those picks that can kind of just go unnoticed and not really kill Mike McCagnon in his first year as a GM. And
it kind of just flies off the radar, and it's no big deal. It's under the radar. But Todd Bowles being the head coach, is a defensive guy. He's going to come in. I mean, I know they're shopping Wilkerson, though, correct?
Mm-hmm. No, that was put to rest. Was put to rest.
Okay.
I almost traded in
New
my
York tabloids.
Absolutely. I almost traded my Jets fan for the Giants.
I also think someone that would be really good fit for the Jets, just with how versatile they are. I'm not sure how Todd Bowles is going to run the defense, but with Rex there, they were very, very versatile in their blitz schemes and coverage schemes. But
he's still got that same personnel, though. So.
Yes.
The guy you might need to look at would be Shaq Thompson. I mean, the guy's an athletic freak.
And that guy's a top 20 talent.
He's a top 20 talent. Great leader, great work ethic. I think he would fit great there. So,
and his name's Shaq. That's
exactly.
cool.
Shaq.
So. Now we're not going to ask you about your second round pick because you made the playoffs last year, and the Packers don't pick to 62 again.
Well, they're going to take Michael Bennett.
Okay.
Because Michael Bennett, he doesn't fit us scheme wise, but if you watch the NCAA playoffs this past year, besides Bosa, he was probably the best, and Lee, he was probably the best player on that Ohio State defense.
I want to ask the question. Obviously, Jacksonville, we got a quarterback. As a Jets fan and a Titans fan, you're kind of sitting in a situation where the Titans are fielding trade options right now, and if it happens to fall the way it does, the Jets will be fielding trade options. Is there a particular quarterback from the teams that are rumored for the trade, Chicago, San Diego, some of those teams, that you would trade that pick for a quarterback? Like a Philadelphia with Bradford, they're shopping him.
Right. I would I'd stay away from Bradford if I'm Mike McCagnon, but the one quarterback that does catch my eye is Jay Cutler. I think that's an easy one to look at. Now, I know he's had his ups and downs as a quarterback, but if you're going to trade, if you're asking me, I have to trade for one of these quarterbacks already on a team, I think it's Jay Cutler. Unless Phillip Rivers is still available, in which case I'd take a Phillip Rivers if they're willing to give me, Phillip Rivers for the 6th pick. I just don't see where that comes into play with the Jets, but I think Jay Cutler, they've been talking about getting rid of him. He's obviously got the chemistry with Brandon Marshall. He can come in, get that gunslinger. Cold weather city, you got to be able to throw a tight spiral and have a cannon on it. So I think he would be the best fit.
Yeah,
me and you've went over this for a while.
Well, I think the biggest thing with Jay Cutler is that he just needs to change the scenery. I think I'm on the Jay. I'm not giving up on Jay Cutler.
I agree. He's not an A-Rod. He's not just going to soak up the contract. I feel like he wants to prove somebody.
I think he's a competitor. I think he genuinely wants, and I think he's a good player. I just think he needs to change the scenery.
Nashville's not that place, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. They did not like him in Vanderbilt when he was there.
Yeah.
So I think the same. There'll be some sourness still.
Maybe Tampa with Lovey again.
Maybe. My thing is with the Jets, see, it makes more sense. And Sean, you obviously follow it, but I think the Jets are a lot closer to being a competent NFL team than the Titans are. So to make a trade like that on a veteran QB, somebody like a Phillip Rivers who's probably got 2 or 3 more years left in his prime, that makes sense for the Jets because the Jets are so much closer to being a competent playoff NFL ready team. For the Titans, it doesn't, because for the Titans, let's say, even in the best case scenario, Phillip Rivers equals 6 wins, 7 wins. That's best case scenario. So we're still a 500 club. We don't have enough assets to make it worth our while to get a guy like that.
Right. And I see what you're saying in terms of still missing a lot of pieces. If the Jets could just not turn the football over and let their defense control field position and continue to run the football and make some plays between the 20s, I think that they'd be a viable team in the league problem is we just turn the ball over too much, and too many penalties kill our drives.
Well, Clay will never understand this because he went smooth transition from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, so he'll never understand this pain of having a terrible quarterback.
Yeah,
just like the Colts fans out there.
But like I said, with what you just said with the Titans, if they were to get a good time quarterback, they're just going to be mediocre, middle of the road again. So, I mean, they're just going to be, like the Minnesota Vikings or something. So you got to trade back and get more picks. Load up for more picks for the future. You got to trade back.
It doesn't put us in the right direction. It's a Band-Aid, and it just is over a wound, a gaping wound. I mean, we got to start suturing that thing and putting the wound back together and letting it get healed properly. Don't just tape over a Band-Aid and act like it's not there. That's my thing.
Very quickly, we got less than a minute to go. Consensus, Winston goes first?
Yes.
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 I was going to say, are you sold on it?
I'm about 90%.
He made the pick, man.
It's true. He did. So that has been our 2015 Monday Night Sports Talk mock NFL draft. The draft itself is tomorrow night, 8 o'clock from Chi-Town. They're in the Windy City.
Sean could not be happier. It's out of his city. They were not going to boo their pick.
Boo, Jets. That's been our Monday Night Sports Talk for this week. Thanks for listening.